The aroma of freshly brewed coffee wafted through the air of the small cafe, mingling with the sweet scent of pastries that lined the display case. Sarah Mitchell, a renowned attorney, sat at her usual corner table, her eyes scanning the morning's legal briefs. Her sleek dark hair was pulled back into a tight bun, and her tailored suit exuded an air of authority. Yet despite her professional success, an empty feeling nestled deep within her heart, a void that no amount of accolades or achievements could fill. As she sipped her steaming cappuccino, Sarah couldn't shake the sense of something or someone amiss. She often found herself lost in thought, contemplating the whirlwind of her career, the late nights spent at the office, the countless hours devoted to her clients. But beneath the surface of her bustling life lay a quieter, more profound silence that echoed the absence of something she could hardly name. It was a weight she carried alone, a specter that haunted her thoughts. It was then that she noticed a girl sitting at a table in the far corner of the cafe. The child, perhaps 8 or 9, had curly brown hair that framed her face and large, serious eyes that seemed to absorb everything around her. She sat quietly, her hands folded neatly on the table, casting occasional glances in Sarah's direction. There was something about the girl that caught Sarah's attention. Was it the intensity of her gaze? Or perhaps the way she seemed to be studying Sarah, as if trying to decipher a complicated riddle? Sarah's heart skipped a beat, an unfamiliar flutter of intrigue. She felt the urge to approach the girl, to reach out and break the invisible barrier that separated them. But she hesitated, a familiar voice in her head whispering caution. What business did she, a successful attorney, have approaching a child? What could she possibly say? Yet the connection that stirred within her was undeniable. It was as if the girl was a mirror reflecting something lost within her, something she had buried deep in the past. "Excuse me," Sarah finally heard herself say, her voice breaking the cafe's soft hum. She glanced toward the barista, a young man with tattoos peeking from under his sleeves, who was busy preparing drinks. "Can I get a slice of that chocolate cake, please?" She motioned toward the dessert display. "Sure thing, Sarah. Coming right up," he replied, flashing her a friendly smile. As she waited for her order, Sarah's eyes drifted back to the girl. She could feel the weight of the child's gaze on her, a silent observation that sent a shiver down her spine. The girl seemed oblivious to the surrounding chatter, lost in her own world. There was an innocence about her, but also a depth that belied her age. Sarah's heart ached at the sight. It reminded her of a time long ago, a time when hope still flickered in her heart. With the cake in hand, Sarah returned to her table, her mind swirling with thoughts. She took a bite, savoring the rich chocolate flavor, but her gaze kept drifting back to the girl. Should she say something? Could she even express what she felt? The girl had become a part of her routine, an unintentional fixture in her morning ritual. Just then, the girl's eyes met hers, and Sarah's breath caught in her throat. There was a spark of recognition, a flicker of understanding that passed between them. Sarah offered a tentative smile, her heart pounding in her chest. The girl blinked, her serious expression softening for a moment before she returned to staring at her hands. "Do you come here often?" Sarah found herself asking, her voice tinged with curiosity. The girl looked up, her eyes wide. "Sometimes," she replied quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. "What do you like to get?" Sarah pressed, leaning in slightly, eager to draw the girl out. "Cookies," Emma said, her lips curling into a shy smile. "The chocolate chip ones." "Good choice," Sarah nodded, recalling the warm, gooey cookies she had seen in the display. "They're delicious." A moment of silence lingered, heavy yet comfortable. Sarah could feel the unspoken connection growing, a thread weaving between their two worlds. "What's your name?" Sarah ventured, feeling a strange sense of vulnerability. "Emma," the girl replied, her gaze dropping back to her hands. "Emma Thompson." "Well, Emma, it's nice to meet you. I'm Sarah." She extended her hand across the table, a gesture of goodwill. Emma hesitated for a heartbeat before shyly placing her small hand in Sarah's. "Nice to meet you too," Emma mumbled, her serious eyes darting up to meet Sarah's, and for a fleeting moment, a look of something deeper passed between them. An unspoken understanding, a shared sense of loss that neither could articulate. As the cafe buzzed around them, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that their brief encounter held more significance than she could comprehend. Who was this girl, and why did she feel so drawn to her? Emma's presence stirred something within her, a memory she couldn't quite grasp, like a shadow flitting just beyond her reach. "Do you come here alone?" Sarah asked, wanting to know more about the girl who had captured her attention. "Sometimes, but my mom used to come with me," Emma admitted, her voice trailing off. And the mention of her mother struck a chord in Sarah's heart. "What happened to her?" she asked softly, her heart aching at the thought of loss. Emma shrugged, her expression growing distant. She, she's gone now. I come here to remember her." "Oh, Emma," Sarah whispered, feeling a wave of empathy wash over her. "I'm so sorry." The girl nodded, her gaze focused on a distant point outside the cafe window. "It's okay. I just miss her a lot." Sarah's heart ached for the young girl who had already experienced such profound loss. "I understand," she said quietly, feeling the weight of her own memories pressing down on her. "I lost someone too." Emma looked at her then, a flicker of curiosity igniting in her eyes. "Who?" "My daughter," Sarah replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "I thought I lost her forever when she was born." The gravity of the moment hung between them, an invisible thread of shared pain. Emma's expression shifted from curiosity to a deep seriousness that made Sarah's heart race. "You didn't lose her, did you?" Emma asked, her voice steady, yet laced with an innocence that belied the depth of her question. Sarah blinked, caught off guard by the girl's insight. "What do you mean?" Emma leaned closer, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "Sometimes things aren't what they seem. Sometimes we just have to look a little harder to find the truth." Sarah felt a shiver run down her spine at the weight of the girl's words. "You're wise for your age, Emma," she said, trying to mask the tremor in her voice. "Maybe," Emma replied, her serious gaze holding Sarah's. And for a moment, the world around them faded away. As the minutes passed, the cafe bustled with life, yet Sarah felt caught in a bubble, a stillness enveloping them. She wanted to ask more, wanted to dig deeper into the mysterious connections she felt with this girl who had become a part of her morning. But before she could gather her thoughts, Emma stood up, her chair scraping against the floor. "I have to go," she said, a hint of regret in her voice. "But I'll come back tomorrow." "Okay," Sarah replied, her heart sinking slightly at the thought of their goodbye. "I'll be here." As Emma walked away, Sarah felt a strange mix of longing and trepidation. What had just happened? Why did this brief encounter feel so significant? With a heart full of questions, Sarah watched as Emma left the cafe, the bell above the door jingling softly as it swung shut behind her. The void in Sarah's heart felt more palpable than ever, but a flicker of hope began to glow within her, igniting a desire to uncover the truth lurking just beyond her reach. The cozy aroma of freshly brewed coffee wrapped around Sarah Mitchell as she entered the cafe, the familiar bell above the door chiming a soft welcome. It was a ritual she cherished, a momentary escape from the demanding world of law and litigation. She stood for a moment, taking in the warmth of the cafe, the gentle hum of chatter, and the clinking of cups. Despite her success, a lingering void nestled in her heart, a feeling she couldn't quite shake off. As she approached the counter, her gaze instinctively drifted to the corner table, the spot where she first noticed Emma. The girl's presence had become a constant in Sarah's morning routine, like the coffee she craved. With her curly brown hair framing an innocent yet serious face, Emma would often sit in silence, her big eyes observing the bustling atmosphere around her. It was as if she were a little guardian of the cafe, quietly absorbing the world while remaining just out of reach. "Good morning, Sarah. The usual?" the barista Lily asked, her smile brightening the small space. "Yes, please, and add an extra cookie today," Sarah replied, her mind wandering back to Emma. There was something about that girl that intrigued her, the way she observed the world with such intensity and depth. Sarah often found herself looking forward to their brief encounters, although she had never exchanged more than a glance with the girl. As Sarah waited for her order, she felt a knot of anticipation in her stomach. What if today was the day she finally spoke to Emma? The thought sent a rush of warmth through her, but it was quickly followed by a wave of apprehension. What would she say? Would Emma even want to talk to her? Here you go, Lily chimed, placing the steaming cup and a small plate of cookies in front of Sarah. Enjoy. Thanks, Lily, Sarah replied, forcing a smile. She glanced over at Emma, who was sitting alone, her eyes downcast as she traced shapes in the condensation on her cup. Taking a deep breath, Sarah decided to take the plunge. She picked up her coffee and a cookie, steeling herself for what felt like an impossible conversation. As she approached the table, Sarah's heart raced. Hi there, she said, her voice gentle, hoping to break through the girl's shell. I'm Sarah. I've seen you here a few times. Mind if I join you? Emma looked up, her serious gaze meeting Sarah's. For a moment, the silence stretched between them, filled with unspoken words. The girl's brow furrowed slightly, as if weighing the decision. Finally, she nodded, her lips curving into a shy smile that sent a flurry of warmth through Sarah. Of course, Emma replied softly, her voice barely above a whisper. I'm Emma. Nice to meet you, Emma, Sarah said, settling into the chair opposite her. I couldn't help but notice you come here often. Do you like cookies? Emma's eyes brightened at the mention of cookies, and she nodded vigorously. I love cookies, especially chocolate chip. They're my favorite. Sarah smiled, feeling a sense of ease wash over her. You have good taste. I have a few here if you'd like to share. She pushed the plate a little closer to Emma, who hesitated for just a moment before reaching out to take one. Thank you, Emma said, her gaze flickering between the cookie and Sarah's face. There was a hint of something in her eyes, a glimmer of curiosity that made Sarah wonder what thoughts were swirling behind that serious expression. As they munched on their cookies, Sarah felt a strange sense of comfort. It was as if they were old friends, reconnecting after years apart, despite the age gap and the fact that they had only just met. Emma's presence was both grounding and refreshing, a reminder that there was more to life than the relentless pursuit of success. What do you like to do when you're not here? Sarah asked, hoping to draw the girl out of her shell. I like to read, Emma replied, her voice gaining strength. I read a lot of mysteries. They're fun to solve. Sometimes I wish I could be a detective. A detective? That sounds exciting. What's your favorite mystery book? Emma's eyes lit up and she leaned forward slightly. I love Nancy Drew. She's so clever and brave. I want to be like her one day. That's a great choice, Sarah encouraged, her heart swelling with affection for the girl. You know, being a detective is a lot like being a lawyer. You have to solve puzzles and find the truth, even when it's hidden. Emma nodded, her expression thoughtful. I guess that's true, but I think detectives get to do more exciting things, like sneaking around and finding clues. Sarah chuckled, imagining the girl tiptoeing through a dark alley, flashlight in hand. Maybe you'll get to do both one day. You could be a lawyer who also solves mysteries on the side. Emma giggled, a sound that lit up the cafe. That would be cool. I could be a super lawyer detective. As they shared a laugh, Sarah felt a pang in her chest, a bittersweet ache that she couldn't quite place. She found herself captivated by Emma's spirit, the way she approached life with a blend of seriousness and joy. It was a stark contrast to the weight Sarah carried, the unshakable feeling of something missing, something she had lost long ago. As their conversation continued, Sarah learned that Emma's mother had recently passed away. The revelation hung in the air, heavy and poignant. I'm sorry to hear about your mom, Sarah said, her voice softening. That must be really hard for you. Emma's expression shifted, a shadow crossing her features. Yeah, it is. I miss her a lot. She used to bring me here for cookies every Saturday. The mention of the lost tradition tugged at Sarah's heart. She could see the pain in Emma's eyes, the way it lingered just beneath the surface. I can't imagine how tough that must be. It's okay to feel sad, you know. It means you loved her very much. Emma nodded, a small, brave smile peeking through her sadness. I do love her, but I'm trying to be strong. Mom always said I should be brave. That's a wonderful way to honor her, Sarah replied, feeling a deep connection to the girl. Bravery comes in many forms, and it sounds like you're already quite brave for facing this. Emma looked down at her cookie, her fingers tracing the chocolate chips. Do you think it's okay to be sad and brave at the same time? Absolutely, Sarah affirmed. Sometimes being brave means allowing ourselves to feel the sadness. It's a part of healing. As they spoke, an unbreakable bond began to form. stitched together by shared experiences of loss and the desire for connection. In that small cafe, amidst the laughter and chatter of other patrons, Sarah felt a flicker of hope. Perhaps through Emma, she could find a way to navigate her own feelings of emptiness and loss. The cafe buzzed around them, a world full of distractions. Yet for Sarah and Emma, time seemed to stand still. They were two souls wandering through the fog of grief, seeking comfort in each other's company. And in that moment, Sarah realized that perhaps, just perhaps, she was not as alone as she had once believed. The rain poured down in relentless sheets, transforming the world outside into a blur of grays and blues. Sarah Mitchell sat at her usual spot in the corner of the cafe, a steaming cup of coffee cradled in her hands. The rhythmic patter of raindrops against the window provided a comforting backdrop to her thoughts. But today her mind was restless. She watched as people hurried by, umbrellas unfurling like flowers in a storm, and felt a familiar tug of loneliness. Even in a bustling city filled with faces, she often felt like a solitary island. Across the room, Emma sat at her table, her curly brown hair framing her small face like a halo. The girl peered out from behind her book, the pages slightly tilted as if she were trying to catch a glimpse of Sarah without being too obvious. There was something about Emma that captivated Sarah, a depth in those serious eyes, a wisdom that belied her young age. It was as if Emma understood the world in ways that others her age did not. As the rain continued to pour, Sarah noticed the young girl shift in her seat. Emma glanced at the door, then back at her book, her brow furrowing ever so slightly. It was clear that the weather was keeping many of the cafe's regulars at bay. Sarah felt a surge of empathy for the girl, who had recently lost her mother. The cafe had become a refuge for both of them, a place where they could hide from the storms of their lives, both literal and metaphorical. Suddenly, Sarah felt the unmistakable pull of that connection between them. Emma had been visiting the cafe regularly, and each time, Sarah found herself looking forward to their brief encounters. Today, however, felt different. The gloomy weather seemed to create a barrier between them, a wall made of raindrops and thick clouds that kept them apart even as they shared the same space. As if sensing Sarah's gaze, Emma looked up, her serious expression softening into a tentative smile. It was a small gesture, yet it filled Sarah's heart with warmth. Perhaps today was the day to reach out, to break the silence that had hung heavy between them. With a deep breath, she set her coffee cup down and stood, her decision made. "Excuse me, Emma." Sarah approached the table, her voice steady despite the fluttering in her chest. Emma's eyes widened in surprise as Sarah drew closer. "Hi, Miss Mitchell," Emma replied, her voice barely above a whisper. She seemed both nervous and excited, her fingers fidgeting with the edge of her book. "I couldn't help but notice you looking at the cookie display earlier. I thought I might share my favorite recommendation," Sarah said, trying to keep the conversation light and friendly. Emma's serious gaze shifted toward the glass case that displayed an assortment of freshly baked cookies. "I like chocolate chip," she said, a hint of shyness in her voice. "But I've never tried the oatmeal raisin. Are they good?" "They're delicious," Sarah replied, a smile breaking through her own initial apprehension. "They have a hint of cinnamon that makes them extra special. Would you like to try one?" Emma's eyes lit up, and for a moment the weight of her recent loss seemed to lift. "Yes, please, I'd love that," she exclaimed, her voice growing more animated. As Sarah ordered both cookies and returned to the table, she felt an unexpected joy bubbling within her. They sat together, the world outside fading into the background as they shared bites of the warm, sweet treats. The conversation flowed easily, revealing layers of Emma's personality that Sarah hadn't anticipated. "I think you're really smart," Sarah said, watching as Emma savored her cookie. "You seem to know a lot about books." Emma looked down, a faint blush creeping onto her cheeks. "I read a lot. My mom used to take me to the library every week. She said books are like magic doors to other worlds." Sarah's heart ached at the mention of Emma's mother. She considered how the girl had mentioned losing her just a few weeks ago. "I think that's beautiful. Books really can take us places we never thought we could go," Sarah said softly, trying to connect on a deeper level. Emma nodded, her serious expression returning. "Sometimes I feel like there are pieces of my life that don't fit together," she said, her voice growing quiet. Like a puzzle with missing pieces. The words hung in the air between them, heavy with implications. Sarah felt a shiver run down her spine. What do you mean, missing pieces? She asked, her curiosity piqued. Emma looked up, her gaze penetrating. I don't know. Just sometimes I feel like there are things I should know, but I don't. Like there's more to my story than what I've been told, but I can't find the pieces. Sarah's heart raced at the girl's insight. How could someone so young express such complexity? That sounds really tough. I think everyone has their own missing pieces. It's part of being human, she replied, trying to offer comfort. Emma's brow furrowed as she processed Sarah's words. Do you have missing pieces? She asked, her voice low and earnest. The question caught Sarah off guard. She hesitated, the weight of her own unresolved past pressing down on her. I suppose I do. There are things I've never understood about my own life, about my family, she admitted, feeling a strange sense of kinship with the girl. Emma nodded, a knowing look crossing her face. Maybe one day we can help each other find those pieces, she suggested. Sarah's heart swelled at the thought. I would like that very much, Emma, she said, her voice thick with emotion. You're wise beyond your years. The rain continued to fall outside, but within the cafe, a fragile bond was being formed. As they finished their cookies, Sarah felt a sense of urgency to learn more about Emma, to uncover the truth behind the girl's enigmatic words. But just as she was about to ask another question, Emma stood up, her expression suddenly serious again. Thank you for the cookies, Miss Mitchell. I have to go now, she said, looking towards the door. Wait, Emma, can I see you again? I'd like to talk more, Sarah called, a hint of desperation creeping into her voice. Emma paused, her small frame silhouetted against the doorway. I'll be here tomorrow, she replied cryptically before stepping out into the rain. As the door swung shut behind her, Sarah sat back down, her heart racing with questions and untold possibilities. The girl's parting words echoed in her mind, haunting yet intriguing. Missing pieces. What did Emma know? What did she sense about their intertwined fates? The cafe felt emptier now, the absence of Emma leaving an ache in Sarah's chest. She sighed, staring at the rain-soaked world outside, her mind whirling with thoughts of loss and connection. Tomorrow, she promised herself. Tomorrow she would delve deeper into the mysteries that surrounded Emma, and perhaps in doing so, she would unearth the missing pieces of her own life. The rain had stopped, but the air in Sarah Mitchell's apartment felt thick with tension, as if the storm had left behind more than just droplets on the windows. She sat on the edge of her plush, beige sofa, the soft fabric contrasting sharply with the turmoil in her mind. The cryptic phrase Emma had whispered, missing pieces, echoed endlessly in her thoughts, stirring a pot of emotions she had long buried. Sarah took a deep breath, the scent of damp earth wafting in from the open window, but it did little to ground her. She glanced towards the small coffee table where an old wooden box sat, its surface marred by scratches and age. It had belonged to her mother, a relic of a time when secrets were tucked away rather than discussed. Sarah had seen it many times but had never dared to open it. The idea of rummaging through her mother's belongings felt invasive, but the urgency to uncover the truth about her past gnawed at her insides, propelling her forward. With trembling hands, she reached for the box, her fingers brushing against the worn edges as if afraid it might bite back. The latch clicked open, and she lifted the lid, revealing a haphazard collection of letters tied together with frayed twine, yellowed with age. Each envelope bore her mother's elegant handwriting. The ink faded, but the emotion behind the words still palpable. Sarah's heart raced as she carefully pulled out the first letter, her eyes scanning the elegant script. Dear Claire, it began, and with every word, Sarah felt as if she were stepping deeper into a shadowy past. The letter spoke of love, loss, and the weight of family expectations. It revealed a side of her mother she had never known. A woman torn between duty and desire. A woman who had carried the burden of secrets like a second skin. As she continued to read, she stumbled upon references to a daughter, a child, whom her mother had described in terms that twisted her stomach into knots. I miss her every day, one letter confessed. And I wonder if she is safe, if she knows how much she was loved. The words struck Sarah like a physical blow, igniting a flicker of hope that maybe, just maybe, these letters held the answers she sought. "Mom?" Sarah whispered to herself, her voice barely audible against the backdrop of silence. "What are you hiding?" She sifted through the letters, each one unveiling fragments of a life she felt disconnected from. A name, Claire, kept surfacing, a name that sent shivers down her spine. Who was Claire? Why did her mother's letters speak of her with such passion and longing? Sarah's mind raced as she connected the dots, the pieces of a puzzle that had been hidden in plain sight. An hour passed in a blur as she read and reread the letters, her heart pounding with every revelation. Finally, she set the letters aside, her mind spinning with questions. She needed answers, and there was only one person who could provide them: her mother. The thought of confronting her mother filled Sarah with dread. She had always avoided such conversations, preferring to maintain the facade of a perfect family. But now the weight of unspoken truths loomed large, and it was time to face the music. As evening descended, Sarah found herself driving towards her childhood home, the familiar route stirring memories that washed over her like waves. Each turn reminded her of happier times: family dinners, laughter echoing through the halls, and her mother's warm embrace. But now as she approached the house, the air felt electric, charged with the anticipation of confrontation. Her mother, Evelyn Mitchell, was in her late 60s now, her silver hair neatly pulled back in a bun, and her demeanor still held the air of authority that had always commanded respect. Sarah parked in the driveway, her heart thudding in her chest. She took a moment to collect herself, recalling Emma's innocent face and the words that had ignited her quest for truth. "Just ask," she muttered to herself, steeling her resolve. As she stepped inside, the familiar scent of lavender and vanilla enveloped her. Evelyn was in the kitchen, stirring a pot of soup. The sight of her mother, steadfast and nurturing, made Sarah's heart ache with a mixture of love and anger. "Sarah, you're here!" Evelyn exclaimed, her face lighting up with joy. "I didn't expect you tonight. I made your favorite, chicken soup." "Thanks, Mom," Sarah replied, forcing a smile as she joined her at the counter. But the warmth of the moment did little to quell the storm brewing inside her. "Is everything okay?" Evelyn asked, her brow furrowing with concern as she noticed Sarah's tension. "Actually, no. I found something today. Letters, yours, from someone named Claire," Sarah said, watching her mother's reaction closely. Evelyn's expression shifted, her smile faltering as she turned away, her grip tightening on the wooden spoon. "Oh," she said softly, the weight of the word hanging in the air like a leaden cloud. "What do you know about her?" Sarah pressed, unable to contain the urgency in her voice. "Why didn't you ever tell me about her? Who is she?" Evelyn set the spoon down and faced her daughter, her eyes clouded with a mixture of pain and resolve. "It's not what you think, Sarah. It's complicated." "Complicated?" Sarah echoed, frustration bubbling beneath the surface. "Mom, I need to know. All my life, I believed I lost my daughter at birth, but now I'm starting to question everything. You kept this from me. Why?" "I was trying to protect you," Evelyn replied, her voice trembling. "You don't understand the circumstances. It was a different time and—" "Different how?" Sarah interjected, her voice rising. "You kept me in the dark for so long. What else are you hiding?" Evelyn's face hardened, and a wall seemed to rise between them. "I won't discuss this," she said firmly, her tone leaving no room for negotiation. "Mom, please," Sarah pleaded, tears stinging her eyes. "I feel like I'm losing my mind. There's a girl named Emma who comes to the cafe where I go every morning. She has curly brown hair, and she looks at me like she knows something I don't. I can't shake this feeling that she's connected to all of this." Evelyn's expression softened for a brief moment, but she quickly masked it with a stoic facade. "You need to forget about Emma. She's just a child, and you're reading too much into this. Focus on your career, your life. Is that all you care about?" "My career?" Sarah shot back, feeling a swell of anger rise within her. "What about my life? What about my daughter? I need to know the truth." "Enough," Evelyn's voice rose, echoing through the kitchen. "You have no idea what you're asking. Some truths are meant to stay buried." Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. Buried? You mean like the truth about Claire? About my daughter? There was a moment of silence, the air thick with unspoken words. Evelyn's eyes glistened with unshed tears, and for a brief moment, Sarah thought she might relent. But then her mother's walls went back up, and her expression hardened again. I won't discuss this any further, Evelyn stated firmly, turning away. Stunned, Sarah felt her heart plummet. She had come seeking answers, but instead she was met with a wall of silence and denial. The shadows of the past loomed larger than ever, and the weight of unspoken truths threatened to crush her. Mom, please, Sarah said softly, desperation creeping into her voice. I just want to understand. I need to know if Emma is... No! Evelyn cut her off, her voice sharp. You need to leave it alone. For your own good. As Sarah stood there, the weight of her mother's words settled over her like a shroud. In that moment, she realized that uncovering the truth would not be easy. The path ahead was shrouded in darkness, filled with secrets that might tear their family apart. Yet she knew she had to pursue it, for Emma, for herself, and for the daughter she had always believed to be lost. With a heavy heart, Sarah turned and left the kitchen, her mind racing as she stepped back into the night. The world outside was quiet, but inside her a storm was brewing, one that would lead her down an uncertain path. Determined to uncover the missing pieces, she knew that this was just the beginning of her journey, a journey that would test her resolve and reshape her understanding of love, loss, and the bonds that tie us together. The cafe was alive with the aroma of freshly brewed coffee and the soft murmur of morning conversations. Sunlight streamed through the large windows, casting a warm glow on the polished wooden tables. Sarah Mitchell sat in her usual corner, her laptop open, but her focus drifting elsewhere. For weeks, her thoughts had been consumed by the enigmatic girl named Emma, who had unwittingly punctured the carefully constructed walls around her heart. Emma's visits had become the highlight of Sarah's mornings, small yet profound moments that lingered long after the girl had left. But now Sarah felt a sense of urgency pushing her forward. She needed to understand the connection that was developing between them, to peel back the layers of mystery that surrounded Emma like a fog. With a newfound resolve, she decided to seek out the girl and confront whatever truths might lie ahead. As the clock ticked past 10, the door of the cafe swung open, and in walked Emma. Her curly brown hair bounced with each step, and her serious gaze scanned the room before landing on Sarah. The moment their eyes met, a flicker of recognition passed between them, a silent acknowledgement of the uncharted territory they were about to explore. Hi, Emma, Sarah called out, gesturing to the empty chair across from her. Would you like to join me? Emma hesitated for a moment, biting her lip as if weighing her options. Then, with a determined nod, she approached the table and settled into the chair. Hi, Sarah, she replied, her voice soft yet steady. The tension in the air was palpable, thickened by unspoken words and the weight of secrets. Sarah leaned forward, her heart racing. I've been thinking about what you said last time, about the missing pieces. Emma's expression shifted, her serious eyes narrowing slightly. I know more than you think, Sarah. The words hung in the air like a heavy fog, and Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. What do you mean? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I know the truth about your daughter, Emma said, her tone unwavering. There was a gravity in her voice that made Sarah's heart race. And I think you need to hear it. Sarah's breath caught in her throat. The very idea that a child, someone so innocent and vulnerable, could hold the key to her past was both unsettling and intriguing. What do you know? She pressed, trying to maintain her composure. Emma glanced around the cafe as if checking for eavesdroppers, then lowered her voice. I was adopted. My birth mother's name is Claire, and she told me things about her past. A wave of confusion washed over Sarah. Claire? What does that have to do with me? Your last name is Mitchell, right? Emma continued, her eyes locked onto Sarah's with an intensity that belied her age. Well, Claire used to talk about a woman named Sarah Mitchell. She said she had to give her baby away because it was the only way to keep her safe. Sarah felt her heart begin to pound in her chest. The room around her faded into a blur as she processed Emma's words. The stories her mother had told her, the lies that had become her reality, suddenly felt like a fragile facade on the verge of collapse. You, you think I'm your birth mother? She stammered, the disbelief clear in her voice. Emma nodded slowly. I think there's a chance. I've seen pictures of you. You look just like the woman in my dreams. Sarah's mind raced, grappling with the implications of Emma's assertion. Memories of her mother's warnings, the hushed tones and secretive glances, flooded her thoughts. But how can I trust what you're saying? I've been told my whole life that I lost my daughter at birth, that she was gone forever. I'm not lying, Sarah. Emma's brow furrowed as she spoke, her gaze unwavering. I wouldn't say this if I didn't believe it. Claire wanted to find you. She always talked about you, about how brave you were for giving me up. The mention of bravery struck a nerve within Sarah, igniting a mix of anger and sadness. She had spent years building a successful career, all the while carrying the weight of loss and guilt, believing she had made the right choice. Bravery? Is that what it was? Or was it just a way to hide from the truth? I don't know, Emma replied, her voice softening. But I think you need to find out. Maybe we can help each other. The offer hung in the air, an unexpected lifeline thrown into the tumultuous sea of Sarah's past. Yet as tempting as it was, doubt gnawed at her insides. What if you're wrong? What if this is just a coincidence? Then we'll find out together, Emma said, her earnestness shining through. But if there's even a chance, don't you want to know? Sarah's heart waged war between hope and fear, a battle that left her breathless. What if Claire doesn't want me to find her? Emma leaned forward, her voice a whisper. Then let's find a way to talk to her. I can help you. I want to help you. The sincerity in Emma's eyes struck a chord deep within Sarah, awakening a desire she thought had long been buried. Okay, she said finally, the word escaping her lips as a quiet promise. Let's find the truth together. As Emma smiled, a spark of determination ignited in the air between them. The cafe buzzed around them, oblivious to the monumental decision taking place at their small table. Sarah felt a sense of purpose wash over her, a flicker of hope in the midst of chaos. Do you have any photos of Claire? Sarah asked, her curiosity piqued. She needed something tangible to grasp onto, something that could ground her in this whirlwind of emotion. Emma nodded enthusiastically. I do. Let me show you. She pulled out her phone, her fingers deftly navigating through the images. This is her, Emma said, turning the screen towards Sarah. As Sarah gazed at the image of a woman with kind eyes and a warm smile, a rush of emotions flooded through her, recognition, longing, and an unbearable sense of loss. The woman looked familiar, as if she had walked straight out of Sarah's own memories. A knot formed in her stomach as a realization began to take shape. Emma, Sarah said, her voice trembling, I need to know everything you can tell me about her. Okay, Emma replied, her face a picture of resolve. But we'll have to dig deeper. I have some letters that Claire wrote to me. Maybe they can help us find out more. Letters? Sarah's mind raced. Do you have them with you? Emma shook her head. No, but I can get them. They're at home. I promise they'll shed light on everything. All right, Sarah said, her heart pounding in anticipation. Let's meet again tomorrow. You can bring the letters and we can figure this out together. Deal, Emma replied, her smile brightening the dim corners of the cafe. As they parted ways, Sarah felt a mix of fear and excitement coursing through her veins. The possibility of unraveling the truth about her past, about her daughter, sent shivers down her spine. She had spent years living in a shadow, believing in a lie. Now with Emma by her side, she was ready to step into the light and face whatever awaited her. The cafe was unusually quiet that morning, the clatter of cups and the soft hum of conversation punctuated by the occasional hiss of the espresso machine. Sarah Mitchell sat at her usual table by the window, absently stirring her coffee while her mind raced. The revelation from Emma still echoed in her thoughts. I know the truth about your daughter. The simple yet loaded statement had sent her spiraling into a vortex of confusion and fear. Who was this girl, and why did she hold such power over Sarah's past? As if on cue, the door swung open, and a gust of wind swept through the cafe, rustling the pages of the newspaper lying on the table. Sarah glanced up, her heart skipping a beat when she saw Emma walk in. The young girl's curly brown hair bounced with each step she took, her serious gaze scanning the room until it landed on Sarah. There was something about the way Emma looked at her, a mixture of knowing and innocence that sent shivers down Sarah's spine. "Hi, Miss Mitchell," Emma said, her voice barely above a whisper, but steady nonetheless. She approached the table, clutching a small notebook to her chest. "Hi, Emma," Sarah managed to reply, her heart racing. She motioned for the girl to sit down, her mind still tangled in the implications of their last conversation. "I was hoping you'd come." Emma settled into the chair across from Sarah, her eyes sparkling with a mix of excitement and trepidation. "I wanted to talk to you about what I said the other day." "About my daughter?" Sarah's voice wavered and she leaned in, her curiosity piqued. "You mentioned knowing the truth. What do you mean?" Emma took a deep breath, her small fingers tracing the edges of her notebook. "It's complicated, but I think you and I are connected in a way. My mom used to tell me stories, and one of them was about a woman named Claire. She said Claire had a daughter who—" Emma's voice trailed off, and she glanced down at her notebook as if searching for the right words. "Who what?" Sarah prompted, her heart pounding in her chest. "Emma, please, I need to know." Emma looked up, her serious gaze locking onto Sarah's. "Claire is your last name too, isn't it? I think you might be my real mom." The words hung in the air like a heavy fog, enveloping Sarah in disbelief. "What do you mean?" she stammered, her mind racing. "That's not possible. I lost my daughter. I thought I lost her forever." "I was adopted," Emma said softly, her eyes glimmering with unshed tears. "But my mom said she got me from someone named Claire. And when I saw you, it felt like I knew you." Sarah's breath hitched, and she felt the world around her begin to tilt. "Emma, are you saying you think I'm your mother?" The idea seemed absurd, yet as Emma nodded, something deep within Sarah began to stir. A long-buried hope, a flicker of possibility. "I had this dream," Emma continued, her voice gaining strength. "There was a baby and she was crying. I never really understood it until I saw you. I think it was you and me in the dream." "Can I see that photograph?" Sarah asked, her voice trembling with urgency. She remembered the box of letters her mother had hidden away, the hints of her past that she had only just begun to uncover. "Do you have it with you?" Emma nodded, reaching into her bag and pulling out a faded photograph. She placed it on the table, her small hands trembling slightly. "This is the baby from my dreams." Sarah's breath caught in her throat as she looked down at the photograph. The image was worn, but the baby's features were unmistakable. Chubby cheeks, dark hair, and wide, innocent eyes staring back at her. "This baby, it looks so much like—" Her voice faltered, and she felt tears prickling at the corners of her eyes. "Like I did when I was a baby." As she stared at the photograph, a wave of emotions crashed over her. Grief, confusion, and an overwhelming yearning for the daughter she had thought she lost. "Emma, if what you're saying is true—" Her voice broke, and she struggled to maintain her composure. "If you are my daughter, then where have you been all this time?" Emma hesitated, her brow furrowing. "I don't know the whole story. My mom, she never talked much about my past. She just always said I was special and that I had a family out there somewhere. When I saw you, I felt like I had to find out." Sarah reached across the table, her fingers brushing against Emma's hand. "I thought I lost you. I've spent years wondering what happened. I was told you died during childbirth." The words felt like a knife twisting in her heart. But maybe that was a lie. Just then, the cafe door swung open again, and a familiar figure stepped inside. Sarah's breath caught in her throat as she recognized the tall silhouette. It was her mother, Margaret. The woman looked older than Sarah remembered, her hair streaked with gray, and her face lined with worry. Margaret's eyes darted around the cafe before landing on Sarah and Emma. "Sarah!" Margaret called, her voice sharp with urgency. "What are you doing here?" "Mom?" Sarah stood up, her heart racing at the sight of her mother. "What are you doing here?" Margaret's gaze landed on Emma, and a flicker of recognition crossed her face. "You shouldn't be talking to her," she said, her voice low and tense. "It's not safe." "Not safe?" Sarah echoed, incredulity washing over her. "What do you mean? Emma thinks she might be my daughter." Margaret's face paled and she rushed forward, grasping Sarah's arm. You need to forget this nonsense. Emma is just a girl. She doesn't know what she's talking about. I know what I'm talking about, Emma interjected, her voice rising with defiance. I'm not just some random girl. I have a right to know my family. Margaret's eyes narrowed and Sarah felt a surge of anger. Mom, you need to tell me the truth. All these years, you've kept secrets from me. Why? But before Margaret could respond, the tension in the cafe was palpable, and the air crackled with unresolved emotions. Sarah felt as if the entire world had shifted beneath her feet. Could it be possible that Emma was indeed her long-lost daughter? The child she had mourned for so long? And what was the truth her mother was so desperate to hide? As the three of them stood there, caught in a web of revelations and unanswered questions, Sarah's heart raced with the possibilities that loomed before her. She could feel the threads of their lives intertwining, pulling her toward a truth she had been denied for far too long. And as she looked into Emma's earnest eyes and then into her mother's troubled face, she knew that the journey to uncovering her past was only just beginning.